welcome to this episode of Trash to Track. In this episode we're going to be looking at 3 vehicles from this Hornby Ringfield Motor HST set, namely the power car, the dummy car and one of the short Mark III coaches that made this train setup. We're going to start by having a look at the power car. As you can see, it's quite grubby. This is the power car that featured in the episode 1 of Gems or Junk. So we're going to start looking at it now. On this side there's a glue mark or something stuck to the side there, so that'll have to be remedied. And the wheels are pretty dirty. This isn't all over pretty manky condition. This Mark III is pretty battered as well. There's marks on the windows, on the roof, and there's something all over this side which we're going to have to remove to restore this to some sort of use. The dummy car isn't too bad. There's a few marks on the body shell, but for a model that's 40 years old it's not too bad, although again just a little bit grubby. Putting the power car on the track, we're going to do a quick battery test to see if there's any life in this at all. Putting the battery on there, the engine isn't really into running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some leads from a controller just in case it needs a bit more power, and then the motor actually does start going at this point. So all is not lost and the motor is actually working to an extent. Although as you can see there, it does need quite a lot of work to get it going again. What I think I might do with this set is I might start with the Mark III. Just for something different, as it's a coach and we've not featured a coach on Trash to Track before. So I'm going to get these baby wipes now and I'm going to try and remove all this crap from the side of this model. But in doing so, as you can see, it's pulling the paint off the window inserts there, so they're going to need to be repainted. Or I'm going to try and look for some spare parts online. Wiping the body shell with this baby wipe does remove quite a lot of dirt, especially off the roof. It was really caked on. Who knows when it was the last time that this coach was used. The baby wipes have fetched most of that off, but as you can see, like I said, the damage to the window inserts will need to be rectified later on. Disassembling these coaches is relatively simple. The bogies just pull out of their plastic holes there, and then we can give the underside a good dusting and a wipe over with the wipe as well to remove any old dirt and grime that's built up under here. One of the bogies is missing the coupling hook, so I'm going to have a look in my spares box now to see if I've got a coupling hook off a Hornby model. Luckily enough I have, and these are a simple clip fit onto a plastic lug that's moulded into part of the bogie frame. Putting the coupling in through the top there, the hooked part of the metal just hooks on the plastic lug, and that's one job off the list. Just to check, make sure they're both working. Now we can clean the wheels of these bogies, and I clean them using my usual cotton bud and methylated spirits method. There is quite a lot of crud built up on these, but one of the wheels had a build-up of oxidisation as well, so I had to resort to breaking out the fiberglass pencil and giving that wheel in particular a good polishing back to the plating on the wheel. I'm not sure what it was that had built up, but it hadn't affected the plating underneath. It was during this Trash to Track that I realised that I'm running low on cotton buds. I'll have to nip down to the local shop and stock up. Now that all the wheels have been cleaned, we're going to put the bogies back on the chassis there, and they just clip back in with a little bit of gentle force. They should just snap back in place, and that's the chassis dealt with. Now I'm going to have a look at the rest of the coach. Disassembling the windows is quite simple. By using my fingernail there, I just prise the window strip out gently, and then running my fingernail along the edge, it pulls the window out of the coach side, and these can be worked on. Now I'm going to look for spares before attempting to repaint these, but I don't hold out much hope. The same was done on the other side. Now the coach is almost done, we're going to look at the dummy car. I put the dummy car on the track just to test whether or not the bulb is good inside. But unfortunately it looks like the bulb isn't responsive, so the bulb I think that provides the working directional headlights is broken. Now stripping the power cars down is relatively simple as well. There is a clip on the bogie there that you just gently push in and it pops out, revealing one of the pickup wires which we can remove and release the bogie. The rear bogie is held in with the same clip. Once the bogies have been removed, that one needed a bit of persuasion from a flat bladed screwdriver, we can start removing the body, and there are 5 clips, 2 on each side and 1 in the rear underneath the corridor gangway, and then the body shell is gently prised off. the cab interior there had stuck to the inside of the body, as had one of the wires. The cab glazing doesn't look like it's glued in, and with gentle force unclipping it, it comes out, as does the glazing in the rear of the power car. I'm stripping this right down as I'm going to wash all these parts to get the majority of the muck and dirt off them. The window units aren't broken, which is a bonus. And you can tell this is an early body shell with the yellow painted finish, and the blue is plastic coloured. Now, to disassemble the dummy car bogies, just use a flat bladed screwdriver like that, undo the clip, and the whole ensemble falls out. Try and remember the orientation of the wheels, as that's important for the directional lighting. I'm going to give the bulb a quick battery test now to see if it's any good. But the wires there are all quite mangled in this. Again, who knows when the last time was that this was used. And testing the bulb on the battery, it proved to be dead. So I'm going to have to get a spare. Now, using the plastic tub, I put all the parts of the dummy car in, wheels, glazing, bogies, the lot. And I'm going to douse them with warm water and washing up liquid to give them a thorough washing with the toothbrush. The reason I washed the wheels and the metal frames and everything is they were coated in years of crud and old grease and oil, so everything needed a thorough cleaning. Working gently with the toothbrush, I do everything methodically and then leave it on some paper towel to dry overnight. The glazing units were done and they all came up pretty well. The metal parts of the bogies, once I can fish them out of the water here, although that's the cab glazing, the grease all came off there, which was very good. Now I've done the body shell, I'm just giving it a quick dry here, and it looks like it's come up quite nicely. All the marks on the cab roof and around the cab have come off, apart from where somebody's touched it up with paint in the past. Now we're going to look at the driving power car, and this was disassembled in the same way as the dummy car. But this time I took the body shell off first, just to have a look at what motor and what we've got going on inside here. And again, this was wedged in pretty firmly in that nose end. This, I don't know why, but usually these come out pretty easily. Now, I'm going to push the light unit gently out of the front here. Try not to lose or break that, as spares are hard to come by. I put that in the tray, and I'm going to do the same with this power car as the dummy one and give it all a good clean. But obviously not the motor and electrics. The cab glazing in this power car is actually glued in place, so I left it where it was because I didn't want to break it. Now we're going to have a look at this is the standard Hornby Ringfield motor assembly here. And drop the power bogie out there. And I also dropped the front bogie out after having removed the wires. And again, with a flat bladed screwdriver, I just released the Ringfield motor from the bogie frame there, and we can have a look at it. Giving it a test with the battery now shows that the motor actually does run. But it's not running very well, so it does need a good service. The armature in there looks pretty dirty. Here we are again, washing the body and the glazing on the bogies of the power car. This was washed in the same water as the dummy car, and as you can see here, look at the amount of dirt there is at the bottom of that water. It's truly disgusting. Whilst that dries, we're going to look at this Ringfield motor. And I'm going to first lift up these brush retainers to release the brushes and springs, and we'll see what sort of condition they're in. The spring comes out pretty easily, but the brush seems to be stuck inside the housing there, which is never a good sign. Although turning it upside down and tapping, the brushes do eventually fall out. And they're not in too bad a condition, they're just gummed up and will need a good clean. There's plenty of life left in these yet. The next thing I do is to remove that wire there so that the faceplate will come off, and I'm going to remove this brass retainer and release all the gears. All of this will need a blooming good clean, as like I said, who knows when this was last serviced. And the guy I bought this from in the first Gems or Junk said that it had been in somebody's loft for at least 15 to 20 years. So we're dealing with time here as well. Time is not kind to models that don't run, as all the grease and oil congeals. I'm going to release the wheels by putting these tweezer nose pliers just under the wheel there and pulling them gently, and the wheels pop off. With these gone, it's easy to remove the motor faceplate using a small flat bladed screwdriver, pulling gently not to break the clips, and we've got access to the armature. And you can see there the carbon build-up on that motor faceplate. Using my cotton bud and meths method, I'm just going to give it a quick clean over, and you can see the amount of dirt there is in this. No wonder it wasn't running very well. Now you've seen me do this quite a lot of times, so cleaning the armature with a cotton bud and meth to start with to remove the worst of the carbon buildup, followed by a gentle polishing with a fiberglass pencil. And once that's done, I clean the gaps in the armature plates with a shaved down toothpick to ensure that all the carbon and muck deposits have been removed. A lot of people don't like using fiberglass brushes on these armatures, but I've seen people use wire brushes in Dremel multi-tools. That is a big no-no. You can really damage the brass on them, whereas a fiberglass brush is very gentle and it all depends on how you use it. One final polish with the mess there and you can see that armature is shining like a new pin. And as I said, I'm just cleaning the gaps out there just to make sure that all the carbon buildup has gone. Now you can see there that the motor and the armature look relatively wet. That's because off camera I gave them a quick squirt with the WD-40 contact cleaner, and I also cleaned the axle holes there to clean out any old oil and grease. And also in this armature housing here gently you can see that there's still a lot of muck build-up in there, so this contact cleaner removed it all. Just one more quick polish of the motor faceplate and we're about ready to start reassembling this motor and giving it a test. Now that we've got the motor there, before we reassemble it rather, I'm going to give the cogs and that a quick clean up again with methylated spirits and a cotton bud. No wonder I go through so many cotton buds. I should take shares out in Johnson's Baby cotton buds. I'd make a fortune. But polishing all the gears up, removing all the old lubrication and the built up muck, and then we can start to rebuild the motor and giving it a test. So the first thing to do is to replace the motor faceplate there, and this just simply clips on with the plastic clips. And then I'm going to reattach that wire. No, I'm not. What am I doing? Oh, I'm doing the brushes first. Don't know why I didn't put that wire on then, but I put the brushes in with the needle nose pliers, drop them in, and then put the spring in very gently. This takes care, this does, as you don't want the spring to fly off into the ether, otherwise you're going to have to wait for spare parts to arrive. Once that's in and pressed down, I just gently squeeze the top there with the pliers and then move the capacitor up to allow the brush retainers to clip back firmly. And then once both brushes are in, I just give a bit of lubrication on the bearings there and behind that drive gear. And then I'm going to turn my attention to the axles, as these have got quite a build-up of muck on them. I'm unsure how this grease and that all got inside them axle houses there, but you can see there's a wrap of hair around this axle, which isn't uncommon on these sort of models, as they were marketed for train sets, as I would bet a pound to a penny that this has done a few laps on the carpet over the years. Now it's all clean, I put a slight drop of lubrication into the bearings there for the axles, and the axles are gently slid in place when I can get the correct orientation. Once the axles are in, I put a small amount of silicone grease on all of the gear spigots before reapplying the gears. It's important to reapply lubrication, as I've said before, after cleaning the motor housing with the contact cleaner, as that really does remove any existing lubrication on it, and you really don't want to run this motor dry. Reassembling the motor, I put the two small cogs on the bottom there and the corresponding large cogs on the top, and then everything's held in place with that brass retaining clip. This just simply clips onto the two spigots and then under that holder that's cast into the motor weight. The wheels are then placed back back on their axles, and then something I don't often show with these tractor tracks, and I don't know why I've not shown it before, is but after I've lubricated all this up, I actually do check the back-to-back measurements with my digital calipers. And it was only recently when I was re-watching a tractor track that I realised that I've never actually shown it before. I'm not sure why. But now it's been rebuilt, we put the battery on the terminals and hey presto, that motor is running like a Swiss watch. These ring-filled motors really are indestructible if they're serviced correctly. And as I said, there's digital calipers here. I have done this with every tractor track I've done, I think, other than the breakdown crane, but I don't know why I've never filmed it before. You can see there that the back-to-backs are all okay. 14 mil. There we go, 14.1. That is spot on. And as you saw, it was running nicely with the battery. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean the wheels by attaching these two power leads here to let the wheels spin on the drive unit. And whilst they're spinning, I polish them up with the fiberglass pencil, followed by, you guessed it, a cotton bud and methylated spirits. I really do need to get to the shops now as I'm running down to my last couple of cotton buds. Right, now time to reassemble the motor bogie and getting the newly cleaned bogie unit there. There is quite a lot of detail cast into this considering its age. I mean, this is a 1970s model, early 70s, and there is a lot of bogie detail for what was basically a train set toy. Although this was the first HST on the market, Lima's followed many years later. So the motor power bogie there is clipped back into the chassis, and move this nest of wiring we've got here. And then I'm going to clean up and reinsert the dummy bogie. You can see why the bulb didn't work there, as one of the legs has actually broke off over time, probably due to it being thrown about in that box that we got this out of. Give the chassis plate a good dusting over with an old makeup brush there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reassemble the leading bogie. I've got a new bulb there. This is a couple of days later. That came through the post as I bought some spares off eBay. And as I said before, after cleaning the wheels with the meths and the fiberglass pencil, as again there was quite a lot of build up on these wheels, it is essential to get the orientation of the wheels correct, especially on the power bogie, on the driving chassis, sorry, because if you don't, it won't run, as both wheels will be trying to pick up from the same rail and you'll cause a short circuit. So once they're into this die cast holder here, I actually do put a tiny amount of oil in the axle runs, as when I tried to move this model when we first started it, on the dummy power car and this leading bogie here on the power car, the wheels were pretty stiff in their holders. Now that may have been due to a build-up of lubrication over the years, but this now runs lovely and smoothly and is ready for reassembly. These these die-cast wheel holdings for these bogies will only go in one way, so ensure that you've got the big clip facing towards the big hole in the casting, obviously, and the smaller clip into the smaller hole. Don't try and force them in the wrong way round, as you could distort or even break the bogie moulding. Now that that's all done, I'm going to reinsert it into the chassis there, and we're going to put this bulb with its legs through those two holes in the plastic chassis. And then we're going to attempt to sort this nest of wiring out and put it back in the correct place. First of all, these pins push down and hold the bulb in place. This transfers power from that wire to those thin brass legs on this tiny little bulb. Work steadily when doing this, as the last thing you want to do is to break those again and have to buy even more spares. They really are quite a friction fit, but if you push too hard you will break that brass leg, as I said. Now I'm going to give it a quick battery test with the capacitor, and you can see there the bulb is lit. Although looking at the bulb and how dim it is, I think it's definitely time I get a new battery. So that's on the shopping list as well as cotton buds. I put the cab insert back in there, as this has a holder for the wiring run. They simply just clip in like that. And then that wire feeds through the chassis and into the non-driving bogie like that. The wires have crimped connectors in, which push into connectors that are actually cast into the wheel housings. This wire with the capacitor on it goes into the motor, and this other wire from the motor, oops, I'll just try and clip that back in there. That holder there is bent backwards, and this is how it came, so I've put it back how it was. This wire also clips into the leading bogie that picks power up for the motor. And as I said, the wire with the capacitor on it actually fits on a lug that is cast onto the motor housing itself, and it fits just behind a little lug there, just like so. And now the chassis is ready for testing. I'll just give it a quick test there to make sure the bogies are pivoting alright and none of the wires are catching, and everything looks good at this point. So let's turn our attention now to the body shell. That glue mark came off when I gave the body shell a wash, but I'm really not happy with the mark it's left on the body side. But when you look inside the model, there's actually a nick inside of it, so that's pushed from the inside. Whether that was done on manufacturer or whether somebody's had this apart in the past, I'm not sure. But we're going to have to repaint that grey area. That was a little bit out of sequence there, as now I'm testing the chassis for the power car, and as you can see, it's running really nicely on the test track. I should invest in a bit of extra track and make the test track a bit longer. Now we turn our attention to the body shell again, and as you can see, I've masked off the grey area, And although some people will balk at this idea, I'm actually going to repaint this with Railmatch Rail Grey using a very soft, very fine brush. People may be shouting now saying, oh, you should have sprayed it, but I wasn't prepared to mask the entire power car up, as one, I didn't have the time, and two, I didn't want to fire the airbrush up for what was a relatively quick repaint. I also did some detail painting on both of the power car body shells. I touched in the handrails with white paint that was there but had worn off. I painted the fuel gauge on the chassis and also the handles on the doors, on the cab doors there and on the rear door that allowed parcels to be loaded. I'm really starting to like how these power cars are coming back to life. And the grey there looks a lot better. The camera's a bit cruel and does show a few brush marks, but in real life you can hardly tell. And the rail grey from Railmatch was a very good match to the grey on the body shell. And as you can see there, I've also repainted the roof of the Mark III satin black. And there's the detail painting on the other power car. These power cars are two different colours. And I think the bottom one is an early one with a yellow painted finish, and the top one is a full painted finish. So that just proves that this dummy car is a lot older than the power car is. Now that that's all dry, I'm going to reinsert the rear glazing on the driving car, and we're going to put the body shell back onto the chassis. Once I've sorted the wires out, a simple case of slotting the front of the chassis into the nose of the HST and then pushing down gently until all 5 of the clips engage. The rear clip underneath the corridor there sometimes needs some assistance with a small flat bladed screwdriver, but in this instance it clipped on alright, and I think this power car now looks quite nice. The last thing to do is put the light unit back in, which we managed to keep without breaking, and that's the power car done. To reassemble the dummy car, it is pretty much the same as what we did before. The wheels were put in the wheel holders in the correct orientation and were given some lubrication, put back in the chassis, and the associated wiring was put on. I put the wheels in wrong there, just as a demonstration as how not to do it. And then once that's all done, the glazing was refitted to the dummy car, and it was all back assembled as it should be. Now I couldn't get any spare parts for the Mark III, so again out with the rail grey and the paintbrush, a very fine number 0 paintbrush, and I hand paint all the grey back onto the windows. Now I don't think they've come up too bad. This is after 24 hours when it's dry, and they look a lot better than they did. They're not perfect and they're not flawless. There are some cracks in these, but I could not get spares anywhere, so they'll have to do. And let's be honest, this model is 45 years old probably now, so it's not going to be perfect. The windows just clip back into the Mark III's, and with gentle pressure they all sit back into the connecting lugs. And the Mark III is pretty much sorted as well. As before, you'll see on the testing of the dummy car that the light bulb didn't work, so again I had to get another spare, and I actually soldered that in with those wires, and now the dummy car is clipped back on. Again, by putting the chassis into the nose first and then engaging all the clips, and once it's clipped fully home, that's this rebuild virtually complete. I just test them there to make sure the bogies are pivoting correctly, and the two power cars are side by side, having been fully overhauled from top to bottom. So now that the rebuild's complete, let's have a look at what we started with. This power car had been rescued from the box in the first episode of Gems or Junk. It was a very poor runner, almost non-running, and there was a massive mark on the side which was either glue, grease or something. It was lacklustre, the windows were filthy, the wheels were filthy, and it needed a complete overhaul. And this is what the power car looks like now. It's had a thorough rebuild and clean, and you can tell it is shiny. The detail painting's been done, the grey has been touched up, and it really does look the part. Not on par with the modern models that cost upwards of £300, but I'm really happy with how this rebuild's turned out. Now we'll look at the Mark III. This was in a bit of a state. It had something spilt all down one side, the roof was dirty, the wheels were absolutely filthy, but with the aid of some paint and some baby wipes and some patience, we've reborn this Mark III. The windows have been repainted, the roof's been repainted, and this has had as much as an overhaul as it can have. Yes, some of the windows are still slightly cracked, but as I said, there's really little I can do about that. And that just leaves the dummy car. Again, this was filthy, It's a different blue to the power car, as I think it's from a different set, although it's numbered differently as a power car number. This has also had a nuts and bolts restoration from the ground up. Wheels clean, new bulb, and now this also looks very nice, having been cleaned and the details all painted on. I'm really happy with how this 3-car set has been restored to working order, and it must have made somebody very happy as they received it as a train set in the 1970s. I'm going to show you some shots now of it running around my son's layout in the 3-car formation, and I'm going to thank you all for watching Trash to Track yet again. I do appreciate the support, and if you've got a model you'd like to see featured, email me on the email address on screen. That's dansmodelrailways@gmail.com, and we'll look at getting it sent out, and maybe it'll feature in a future episode of Trash to Track. Who knows? Well, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. Hello, it's Dan from Dansmodelrailways. Bit of a strange thing to have at the end of a Trash to Track, I know. But those of you who have stuck it out this far into the video, this is a message of thanks from me. The channel recently surpassed 3,500 subscribers, which is more than I ever thought I'd ever get, just tinkering around with these models. And the support for Trash to Track has been really good. I've had people sending me models, I've sent them back, the feedback's been really good. And I've enjoyed doing it. I've enjoyed helping you out with your own models. So you've just watched me now, in this episode, restore this Hornby HST, this very loco and the coach and the dummy car there. Leave a comment on the video, any comment, as long as it's nice, as long as it's a nice comment. And in a couple of episodes' time, I'm going to pick one of you at random, and somebody's going to win this HST. I'm going to send you the power car, the carriage we've just done, and the dummy car as well. As mentioned in the video, there are 2 different blues on there, but I'm not doing a full repaint on a Hornby HST. I've got 2 HST rakes of my own. My son's also got 2 Hornby HSTs. If I don't give it away, it's going to sit in a box, probably not be used for years, and then going to need another service. So I'd rather put it to good use. So any of you out there want to win this HST, leave a comment down below, and then what I'll do is at the end of a Trash to Track, in a couple of episodes time, I will draw the winner at random using the comment picker. It won't be live this time, but I'll just pick a comment at random, and one of you guys out there is going to win this HST and get it in time for Christmas. And that is a thank you from me for supporting my channel and making Trash to Track as successful as it has been. So thanks again. Roll on 5,000 subscribers now. That's the next milestone to reach. And who knows, I might do another giveaway then. There is loads in the draw for Trash to Track to come up, as well as what you guys are sending me. So the series has gone from probably doing 12 or 13 engines I think I had for starters. It's now got probably 100, if not more, including subscribers locos. So it's really doing well. So again, thanks for the support. I really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you again in the next Trash to Track. Remember to leave the comment, and this HST could be on its way to you. Bye for now.